Hi everybody, and welcome to this lesson on provisioning our first Hyperledger Fabric network through AWS's CloudFormation stack. So in this demonstration, we're going to use the blockchain template created using the AWS CloudFormation, which is provided by AWS, in order to provision nodes in our Hyperledger Fabric network. Now, in order to get started, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to aws.amazon.com/blockchain. Now, a very good thing about AWS is they have provided us templates, a CloudFormation template to provision our entire Hyperledger Fabric network, which has made life a lot easier and a lot simpler in order to get our network up and running. Now, as you guys can see, this page gives a basic overview about the different products in blockchain that AWS has started to offer and is going to offer in the upcoming future. What we are interested in is the AWS blockchain templates. Once we get into the blockchain templates, this page gives a basic overview about what blockchain templates are, and the two main ones that are offered by AWS at this point in time are one for Ethereum and one for the Hyperledger Fabric. And for the purposes of this course and this demonstration, what we are interested in is the Hyperledger Fabric one. And here it gives a basic overview of how the templates basically work. We choose a template, we choose our platform, and then we go ahead and build our network. So we're going to go ahead and click on Get Started with a blockchain template. And it's going to take us to a page where we can select our templates, which ones you want to use. And like I mentioned, the two ones are Ethereum or Hyperledger Fabric. And on the bottom, it lists the different regions that it currently offers the Hyperledger Fabric blockchain templates. Right now, there are three regions that it's offered in: Northern Virginia, Ohio, and Oregon. And if you remember the VPC that I created in one of the previous lessons, I made sure that it was hosted in Northern Virginia. So you want to make sure that the VPC and the subnets that you guys create are hosted in one of these three regions, because if they're hosted in another region, you will have issues launching your Hyperledger blockchain template. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Northern Virginia to launch the CloudFormation stack. Now, this is where we can configure our Hyperledger network. Now, a stack on AWS simply refers to a logical group of resources on the AWS cloud that you can administer together. So at the very top, we can see that there's some basic information about the template and description of the Fabric network that we're going to build for the rest of this course. Now we're going to go ahead and start filling out some of the basic information. We require a name for the stack. Now, after I give a basic name, we're going to move on to configuring the specific parameters of our Fabric network. Now, the first is the name of the public channel on our Fabric network. Now, by default, it's called My Channel. You can refer to another name, and if you are going to be using this for a production environment, you want to make sure that you use something meaningful that will help identify this public channel on the Fabric network. But I'm just going to go ahead and leave it by default to My Channel. Next, you guys can see that there's three different organizations that are created as part of this Fabric network. Now, let's say if this network is associated with a set of companies, you might want to have a domain name for this consortium or the set of companies, and that's what you specify. And then in terms of the organization, so if the Hyperledger Fabric network is to be used within different teams or different departments in your organizations, you will specify the organization domain name here, such as Qasem.com or Amazon.com. Now, the network will automatically be provisioned with three peers from three different organizations, and you can specify the names of the organizations and the text boxes that you guys see, org 1, 2, and 3. Now, by default, they're named org 1, 2, and 3, but you can specify your own specific names here. Now, the names will represent the subdomains for each organization. For example, org1.amazon.com, or as you guys see here, org1.example.com. Now, these three domains will form the pure nodes of a Hyperledger Fabric network. Now, once you scroll on down, you can specify the ID of the VPC to which our AC2 is going to be connected, and this is going to be the VPC that we created in one of the previous labs. Before we go on to the EC2, the subnet that's associated with that VPC, and again, this is the subnet we also created and made sure we allowed a couple of protocols, the SSH and the TCP port 8080 into the subnet. So we want to make sure that we specify both of those here specifically and not the default ones. Now, this is the EC2 instance, which will run the containers forming the nodes of our Fabric network. So this is to set the ID of the network that we'll have created earlier. And this is the security group that we just created in the previous lab. And here is the ARN that I asked you to copy and keep in your notepads. We want to make sure that we paste that same ARN for the EC2 instance profile. This way it will have the specific access and specific permissions to access the different resources within the AWS network. And here are some of the other parameters in terms of the hardware or the type of EC2 instance we want to launch. I'm going to go ahead and just keep it the default, which is in the free tier, but you can choose specific instances depending on how intensive of work you are going to be doing with this specific EC2 instance. Here's the couple of different template versions, the version 1, or you want to use the latest. We're going to go ahead and select the latest because in case AWS has made some changes or updates, we want to make sure that we use the latest version for our Fabric template. And the last thing that we do is we acknowledge some of the resources and the required capabilities for this formation stack that is going to be utilizing the IAM resources, and it's going to be using the resources within your AWS account. So you want to make sure that we acknowledge that before we go ahead and launch it, just to make sure that you are aware that certain resources will be spun up, such as an EC2 instance, which if you're not in the free tier will start incurring charges. So once we go ahead and specify all of this, we're going to go ahead and click on create stack. Now just keep in mind that the creation of a stack might take a few minutes, so you can go ahead and grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and wait for it to finish, and you can watch the logs to see how things progress, and you can click on the link to view the additional log events that come in, and you'll see how the stacks are being provisioned and are being created. You guys can see, you can click on the refresh and it will take you through the progress of what's going on, if it's currently in progress, if it's currently in created, the different events, the different resources, and the different outputs. All of them will be populated once the stack creation is complete. And the template just takes you through the CloudFormation template. If you guys want to go ahead and browse through it, you can see all of the different resources that are part of this CloudFormation template. Now, defining CloudFormation templates is obviously outside the scope of this course, but you are also able to customize your own CloudFormation templates to launch any resource within AWS, or an entire network in AWS can be launched through a CloudFormation template. So this Hyperledger one that's been created by AWS does exactly that, but specifically to launching a Hyperledger Fabric network in an EC2 instance. So essentially they've automated an entire task of launching a Hyperledger network for us in terms of coding it, and all we have to do is click a few buttons and the entire network will be launched for us automatically. So it's as simple as that. Just wait for a few minutes for it to complete, and there you have it. We have our first Hyperledger Fabric network launched in AWS.